Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 162 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a couple different subjects, some new classes, some exciting news, as well as a new part of our podcast that we're going to call From the Trenches. Talk a little bit about business in general, and really just trying to share some of the insights of everything that we get into when we're into manufacturing, as well as giving some encouragement to those out there in the trenches every day fighting this battle. So I thought this would be a great little segment. We've been in business a long time and just trying to pass along some good information and food for thought, and maybe some encouragement just to keep in there, keep after it, and keep going to get it done. So ought to be a great podcast. We're really excited about this one. So without further ado, here we go. Okay, before we get started, I do want to say a quick thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. They are made from our great friends of the North in Canada. They are probably, in my mind, one of the safest triggers that you could put in a rifle, one of the easiest triggers for you to install, and one of the safest triggers for you to adjust. That's one of the reasons why we put them in all of our rifles here. If you have a trigger, you're putting it into your rifle, and it's got 3 adjustments: over travel, spring tension, and sear engagement. You, as a non-gunsmith or someone who's unfamiliar with that particular trigger even, can put yourself in harm's way really easily. We know that here, over the years of building rifles and working with custom rifles, we know that customers are extremely vulnerable to this, and it's one of the reasons why we opted and always kept an eye out for what we consider to be not just the best trigger, but the safest trigger. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and your game, do it by putting a really good quality trigger in that you can safely adjust, and you can do that by stopping over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank Krieger Barrels. Krieger's the maker of fine cut rifle barrels. They're made in the great state of Wisconsin. They offer a new program called Krieger Direct, where you can order your barrel and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So if you want to build your rifle and you need your barrel now, stop over to kriegerdirect.com. That's kriegerdirect.com. So I always say with a lot of the shooting schools, I learned something in every class, and this class was no exception that we just finished. We had a really awesome group of bottom of West Virginia area, came up as friends and family, and really just a great group of guys to hang out with and shoot. And at no surprise, the newest shooter, or the one with the least experience, had won the Top Gun hat in the class, which is really awesome. I mean, there was other guys gunning for it for sure. But it just goes to show like the fundamentals of marksmanship and how fast a new shooter can come up and really challenge, guys with experience. I don't want to say there's no secrets to it. There's a lot of skill to it and just little things that you have to pay attention to. But it was really awesome to see that, when we talked the first morning of class, everybody goes around the room. We talk a little bit about where everybody's experience is at and where they're at and what they're looking to get from the class. And he really had no expectations. He was like, well, I'm just here to hopefully learn a little bit. I've never done this type of stuff before. And he was playing it down. And I think in good sport, he really didn't have, any of those type of expectations. And man, he turned it on. And by the end of day 3, he was running a rifle like he'd been doing it for 10 years. So congratulations to the Top Gun winner hat, and great shooting, guys. We also had a gentleman in that class who really got me thinking a little bit about how our shooting schools are set up. We have our online long-range shooting school, which is great. I think we have close to 40 individuals now registered at the Patreon page, and we're getting our entire shooting school online. It's going to take us the rest of the year. There's a lot of content. I think right now we have over 14 hours of instructional videos on there, with more coming. And it's sort of amazing. Like for me, if you purchased a long-range shooting DVD or instructional DVD, you might get 40 minutes, an hour and a half of instruction, which is awesome, right? But to think that we have over 14 hours of content on there, I mean, that would be like 5 DVDs, right? And we're still going. I mean, that's how much information we try to give out here at the shooting school over the course of 3 days. But one of the things I think where we fell short, and something that we changed and added to our website, is an introductory class. One of the reasons why these gentlemen were here at our shooting school was one of the guys in the group had taken, just out of just absolute luck of seeing a flyer somewhere, a long-range shooting luck shot, I guess you would say. Like, He was at a type of resort, I guess you would say, maybe golfing. This isn't uncommon. And on one of the boards was a flyer. Hey, try your hand at 1,000 yards. And a guy had a range there. He had a rifle. Go for an hour or whatever and get the chance to shoot a couple shots at long range and see what it's all about. And that's what he did. I don't think that was his intention there. I mean, he was obviously there for other things, but it got the bug, right? And we always try to look for and get new shooters in our sport all the time. Like, we're looking for them. How can we get new people in and expose them to what a great group of people that we have in our industry, what a great industry we have, and how much fun it is to launch a bullet out to 1,000+ yards and hit something like a gallon water jug, right? Or a piece of steel. Like, I guess the steel they had up at this event was pretty big, right? But he was still, nonetheless, I will guarantee it, as a new shooter, when that bullet struck that steel after about a second and a half wait, because a lot of people think when they shoot at the long range stuff, or especially their first time through, is they pull the trigger, the round goes down, they're waiting, and nothing's happening. And in their mind, it's forever. It's about a second and a half, right? And then all of a sudden, clang, there were steel rings, and they actually see the shot on the steel. It stands the hair up on the back of your neck. Your eyeballs get as big as saucer plates, and you're like, oh my God, that was really fun. That was cool. How did that happen? I want to do that again. And so the reason all of these gentlemen were here was from his one hap chance, or one chance, that he just happened to see this flyer and just thought, oh, that'd be fun. I got nothing to do this afternoon. Maybe I'll go try that. And that was it. And now not only do we have him introduced to our sport and hooked, for sure, definitely hooked, but then all of his friends and his friends' two sons are absolutely hooked, right? So where we fall short is, we do the training, and the online school for those that are already interested in our sport is probably really interesting. But the new shooters from the outside, they've never experienced it. It's like giving someone driving instructions when they've never sat behind the steering wheel of a car at 14 years old, with their dad sitting beside them on a dirt road somewhere saying, okay, now don't tell your mom we're about to do this. Now put it in drive. Or my favorite was, mine was a manual transmission, as let out the clutch really slow, right? When you're 14 and you do that, your eyes get as big as saucers. You're like, oh my God, this is driving. This is so cool. Same thing happens with a rifle. It brings back that child of 14 years old, sitting behind the car with your mom not supposed to knowing and your dad giving you a driving lesson, right? It's really cool. So one of the things that we decided to do is add a introductory class to our long-range shooting school or our training schools. Now, it's a one-day event. You can come in, spend the day with us. It's rifles, everything included, including a really nice lunch. So we're going to meet here at our facility at 213 Chestnut Street here in Johnstown. We're going to go over some fundamentals. We're going to go over some of the rules of the range. And, of course, these are new shooters, so the complete operation of the rifle. And then we're going to eat lunch, and then we're all going to go off to the range for an afternoon at the range and really give you a taste of what it's like to have some fun, with some targets, and hopefully get everybody engaging out to 1,000 yards and really just getting a taste of what this is like. And, this is all thanks to Gene. I sent out a newsletter saying, hey, this really opened my eyes to, we're really missing the ball here. Like, we should have an introductory class. Like, those are the people that have never got a chance to experience what we do, and we love sharing what we do. It's our passion. It's why we do what we do. So, Gene, if you're listening, thanks again. I know we spoke last night a little bit again on the phone. He's really excited. I believe he's going to bring his wife through the introductory. She's all excited to come now. So if you'd like to learn more about it, you can stop over to our website. It's wolfprecision.net. Classes are limited to 5, but we are allowing guests. So a lot of times you're bringing someone new. So if you're bringing your son, your daughter, someone you just want to experience this art of what we do, you can register and come as a guest with them. And so it'll be limited to 5 shooters and 5 guests. So looking forward to doing that. Gene, I learned a lot, opened my eyes up big time. When I was driving home after our conversations, I was like, all these years, I never really thought about how important that really was, that first experience behind a gun. And you really set that in motion. So thank you, Gene, for doing that when you come in. Looking forward to having you and your wife here. On the other part of, we're going to come into some shooting and some long-range shooting here in a minute, but I do want to share with you and I know it's not necessarily long-range shooting subject, but it is because it's our business. And I want to share with you, just every episode or so, every couple episodes, we'll do like a 5-minute or 10-minute in the trenches type portion of the podcast. And let me know if it's something that you'd like to hear, if it's something that you want to hear more of. But I just want to share with you something. I listen to a lot of audiobooks because we travel a lot and we drive a lot. And I love to listen to documentaries. I love to listen to different training, different sports, different, all these things and adventures that people go and have. I love to hear their stories, of what they've been through. But I also listen to a lot of business books, motivational books, machining, history of great leaders. This is really, really good stuff to me. I enjoy listening to it. I love to hear people's histories and where they come from. But I have to say that the last trip that I took, I downloaded a bunch of business books, right? And fun books, motivational books, history books of people's lives and the accomplishments and the things that they went through to get there. I love this stuff, right? But I got to say, as like 15 minutes into the first book, I skipped through it. I was like, got into the next book, skipped through it, got into the next book, turned the radio off, and enjoyed the next 4 or 5 hours just driving quietly in my car, just thinking. And I want to share with everybody here some business thoughts, what I'm going to call the in the trenches category of the podcast, because a lot of the people that listen to our podcast are business owners, and they are out there every day, whether they're running a business, their own, somebody else's, or managing, or whatever they're doing. This stuff's important. So one of the things that sort of, I want to say, put me off with some of the books that I started listening to, I'm starting to, as I'm getting older, see a rinse and repeat. Number one, a lot of these books are written by people who are professors who do research on the top, 1% of successful businesses. And for some reason, I found the 1% magic number as to what's going to make your business successful. And then they talk about how their team has discovered. And I'm like, after a while, I get it that you want to tell us that you found the magic pill and you're a number one bestseller on whatever book retail store. But A, you never had to worry about paying your bills while you're writing this book, right? B, you've never really owned a business. C, your team is your interns or college kids that are working for you for free, while you have the luxury of putting this book together with all the help, and then you're going to tell us as business owners how to run our business. Now, granted, I will tell you, there's probably good information in all of these books. I'm not going to take that away. But what I am going to say is I want to hear from the guy that went and made it happen. Like, you've never started the business. So you're a number one bestseller because you've come up with the same formula 10 times in 10 different ways, but you never put your boots on at 4 a.m. and went home at midnight and did that for 6 days straight. Not writing a book, working and working hard and sweating and bleeding and tearing and cutting yourself and exhausted to the point to where you're seeing stars when you go home. The 6 hours you didn't work that day were the 6 hours of sleep that you got. And then you get up and you get a shower and you get clean clothes on and you do the same thing. And then you get home and you go to bed, and the next morning you get up, you get showered, you do the same thing. Do that for about a month in a row, and then come back and tell me why most businesses fail, right? The other thing, or how most businesses succeed, would be my favorite, because one of the things that, this is me talking from Jamie, from a business owner and someone who's grown a business. We're not to the level that we want to be at yet. We're still growing and we're still learning. But one of the things that always bother me with these books is, and I think there's a big market for this self-motivating stuff, is there's always this thing. Okay, so you served in the military. I get it. A lot of us have. So you served in an elite unit. I get it. And thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. But then you're going to lecture us as to why failing's not an option. Okay, I get that. You were a leader, right? You led men into battle. That's been done for centuries, right? And that takes bravery. It takes heart. It takes courage. It takes commitment. It takes being able to convince your troops to trust you. There's a lot to that. Sure, absolutely. You never ran a business. You didn't have to worry about making payroll. You didn't have to worry about taxes that will crush a business. Most small businesses don't have 3 full-time accountants or CFOs. You didn't have to worry about insurances, especially in industries where the insurances aren't very kind. You didn't have to worry about all the other rules and regulations that are associated with any type of your licenses, that one mistake on any paperwork could close your business, right? You never had to do this stuff. You never had other people depending their livelihood. Now you've had people's lives depending. You never had to worry about this stuff, right? You had a job to do and you were a leader in those positions. I get that part. But running a small business is, especially for small entrepreneurs, dude, this is hard. And it is not that failure is not an option. It is absolutely an option, but it's also a choice. And I think a lot of times that it happens isn't because they just get tired. It's not because they chose to fail. It's like winning and losing is going to happen a lot in small business. It's like being stuck on a ladder that's 10 stories in the air and you're halfway up it, going up 2 rungs, down 3 rungs, up 3 rungs, down 2 rungs, up 2 rungs, down 3 rungs, up 3 rungs, down 2 rungs. So you've got this massive expenditure of effort and these small wins and loses, and yet you look up and you're still so far away from the top, and eventually you get tired. Or something else has happened that you don't have your finger on because you don't have a 20 or 30 person team behind you picking up all the little balls that need to be in place while you're on the ladder. So now not only are you on this ladder playing the winning and losing game, trying to get to the top, but now you got to juggle all these balls in the air. That's a small business owner. So you're 5 stories off the ground, you're halfway to succeeding, and now you've got 35 small balls that you're juggling while you're standing on the ladder, going up and down, 1 rung, 2 rungs, 1 rung, 2 rungs. The risk of falling and failing, it's not an option, right? It's a risk. It's a real risk because eventually you either take your eyes off the balls and start dropping balls, or you focus too much on the balls and you fall off the ladder, or you just get exhausted and stop, right? I look at small business like this. I want a book written as to why they fail, because the sad part of the truth in America is this, is that in the first 2 years, 80% of all small startups will fail. That's staggering to me. And I think it's after 5 years, 80% of those will fail. And after 10 years, 80% of those will fail. I think if I was reading the numbers correctly, that out of 1 million businesses, only 40,000 will be standing on their feet after 10 years. That to me is just heartbreaking, right? 20 to 40,000 will succeed. And they still haven't succeeded. They just survived. They're still not at the top of the ladder, and now they're juggling more balls. So imagine as you're climbing that ladder to the success, you're getting higher off the ground, right? Bigger risk. But now as you keep getting to the top point of that ladder, you get more balls added to the juggling act. You know what I'm saying? So now you're like 7 stories in the air, right? You're going up 2, down 1, up 3, down 1, down 2, up 1. And now rather than juggling 4 balls, you're juggling 9. Right? And now you get to the 8th floor, 8 stories of the ladder, higher off the ground, right? There's a much bigger pucker factor when you're that high now because failing's a big fail now, right? So now you're that high in the air and you're still doing it up and down on the rungs of the ladder, and now you're juggling 20 balls. And now you're super focused, right? Because A, take your eye off the balls, you fail. You don't focus enough on where your footing's at on the ladder, you fall to your death, right? So I would love to see, and I love books that were written from the trenches of business owners that are always honest on how close they've always come to not failing, because they fail a lot. They make mistakes. There's setbacks and there's obstacles that they're going to have to overcome, whether they beat over top of them, dig underneath them, cut around them, whatever they're doing. This is just a normal part of businesses. You're going to have wins and loses all the time. You know, things that you're working on that, okay, we have to change directions here because this isn't going to work. We're going to start focusing more effort on this end of the business, or a project or an idea that you've been going down and sort of researching to say, hey, is this project worthwhile? Is this product worth investing into? Is this something that the customer would want? And then you do the research and you get to the point where you're like, okay, we've done the research and the numbers are saying, no, this isn't a good idea. Let's switch direction. So these are the other back areas of business. So I always say that for me, a small business owner is like you're working your tail off while managing, while learning, while growing, while being an accountant, while being an attorney. So the other part to this, and another ball that gets tossed in the air that gets dropped a lot, is just the legal aspects of everything that you're doing. There are a lot of things, especially now, that small business owners take for granted that could be devastating to their business with one decision, right? So, for example, we had an attorney in our last class, and I really enjoyed having him here because he's probably one of the best attorneys in the area that he worked in, and maybe in his state, right? But he had said that, like, simple things like, did you know that when you go to a car dealership and you have them change your oil, that big long thing that you sign here for your service, a lot of times hidden in there says that if there's any consequences or damage done to your car in their effort of doing the service that they're providing, that they're not responsible, i.e. they leave your oil plug out of your car and you drive down the road and blow your motor up, you are responsible. I wonder how many business owners know that form that you're signing says that if they inadvertently damage or make a mistake repairing your car, that they're not responsible for it. Did you know you're signing that? And I was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I mean, we read a lot of stuff, right? And we're always checking all kinds of stuff. But I've never seen that. Like, really? You leave the drain plug out and drive down the road and blow your motor up and the dealership's not responsible? He said, no, you signed it away. It's in there. He said, so now when he goes to the dealership, and by the way, a nice dealership, he reads that and he crosses that out and says, I ain't signing that. You can initial here, but I'm not agreeing to that. You damage my car while you're repairing it, you pay for it. So just something so simple that we are all exposed to, right? Every single one of us has gone to a car dealership for service. How many of us know that is in there? And that's just a car dealership. Imagine when you're getting into all the legal wranglings of growing a manufacturing business, of all the people that you're dealing with, and the fact that a lot of them are bigger than you and have teams of attorney that write stuff not for your benefit and not even for their protection, but for your demise. They're writing something, and if something goes wrong, we're not responsible. By the way, we're throwing it back on you if we make a mistake. That stuff's in there. And so just think about not only having the accountants that you need to take care of and be mindful of, because let's face it, most of your IRS agents probably don't even know the entire tax code. How can they? It would take you like 200 years to read it, right? What they try to do is they try to do their best to make sure that everybody's doing the right thing. And I get that part. But at the same time, how are we as small business owners supposed to be a tax code expert? We didn't go to college for 8 years to be an accountant. We didn't go to college for 8 years to be an attorney. So you are really vulnerable as a small business, not just on the fact that you're 7 stories in the air juggling 100 balls, but some of those balls are big. They're not just a little like plastic balls that you just throw up in the air and fall back down. Some of them are baseballs, some of them are softballs, and one of them might be a bowling ball that you really have to be careful of, because not only can you drop it, but it can now hit you in the head, right? And just completely rip you off the ladder. So I think in every podcast here, or every couple podcasts, I'll see how this goes, but I would like to share with you just some in the trenches stories, some business advice, because I want advice from people who have gone there and done it. I want to hear from people. I love to hear this stuff. If you're a small business owner and you come here when we go out to lunch, I love to hear everything you have to say. How's it going? What have you experienced? Like, to me, this is what we do. This is a band of brotherhood, and trying to share that information on both ways adds value. Both good and bad. You have to pick and choose what is valuable to you, but why not share it? So we're going to try to incorporate that. The last thing I want to share with you too is our business is going on 17 to 18 years now. I started like everybody else in my garage and went out and got everything I needed, got all the training, really excited. Started really by working on my own stuff, and then it slowly morphed into a business, and you're sitting there like, wow, I got a business here. But fast forward 17 years, and a lot of people still think we're a new business, when we're out and we're discussing, or somebody comes in and sees the shop and they how long you been in business? So, they're thinking they're going to say a year or two, and you tell them 17 years and they look at you funny, right? But, want to share with you things to try to give you pointers that has helped us over the years and maybe help you. Not that we are going to write a business book 30 years from now, but just that I think it's important. And so I think it's worth taking the time, because I listen to so many of these books and I know they all mean well, but they're all cheerleaders pom-pomming in the air saying why you can't fail and failure is not an option. And there's a lot of wordplay with all of this stuff. But in the end, it's a lot different when you own the business and you're in that seat every morning and you have all of those balls in the air and the weight on your shoulder and the responsibilities of people's lives in your hand. Honesty, integrity, the values, doing the right thing, working with your customers in a way that not only would make you proud when people are talking about your business, but your family, your wife, your mom, that somebody overhears them talking about you and your business. There's a lot to this, and it's a lot more complicated than just somebody throwing out a leadership book saying, this is how you do it. I think there's more and much more layers to this, and I think just as much risk. So we'll try to share with you. I'll try not to get too much into it. I just want to give you a little bit of insight as to, we'll call it the From the Trenches portion of the podcast, and we'll just put it in there, a little tag in there, bonus segment From the Trenches. Now, as far as the podcast goes, I do want to take some time to talk about the 7 PRC and the 300 PRC. We're getting lots of phone calls and questions, and we might actually take the time to invite the designers and invite Hornady on to talk a little bit about the history of the cartridge, because we just finished up our, I guess you would say, so you want to get into the long-range shooting segment. And if you've not listened to those, go back and listen to them. They're the last previous 8 segments, and where we talk about all the different little things you're going to have to take into consideration when you're getting into or if you're thinking about this type of stuff. Also, I really encourage you to go back and look through, I believe they're in episodes like 117 and 120s, where we talk about building a custom rifle or selecting components for building a custom rifle. All the little things that we know that we look for when we're putting together or assembling. This is really valuable to new shooters especially. And then another segment I would like to recommend that you go back and listen to if you've not found them is the 4 pillars of marksmanship, sharing with you the 4 core ideas as to how to become a great shooter. Like, these are principles that we have learned that lay the groundwork to becoming a great marksman. And so if you haven't listened to these podcasts, we're going to really encourage you to go back, look for them. It's called the 4 pillars of marksmanship, and then also building a custom rifle or the components to a custom rifle. I think all of those segments, we talk a little bit about every piece and part, things you have to pay attention to, really good value in it. So I'm going to encourage you to go back and look at that. But with 7 PRC, I spent a little bit of time yesterday talking with a customer, and he was like, baiting me along, wanting me to give him the tout as to why the 7 PRC is going to be the end-all, beat-all, and comparing it to the 7 mag, which I'm assuming by his tone of the conversation is he was poised to pounce on me as to why the 7 mag is still the better choice, right? And then also asked why we didn't offer it. And so I just want to share with you a little bit of food for thought with calibers and caliber selection. I think this is a big one, and we get swept up in this stuff all the time as shooters. So the 7 PRC, do we offer it? Yes. 300 PRC? Yes, it's coming. PRCs compared to the old Magnums. Why? Well, one of the things I always say when we're talking about new calibers is, if the new calibers weren't invented, the writers won't have anything to write about, and the manufacturers won't have anything to sell you. That's just point blank. A lot of times there's improvements to the case design and cartridge for sure, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But really, it's about keeping the lube on the wheels of the industry. If this didn't happen, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. We would have talked about the 300 Win Mag in the 70s and 80s, and nothing more really to be said. So they hype up a caliber, they design it, they make some tweaks, make it a little bit better. But like I said in the last podcast, the case, there's some importance to it. Like we talked about the 22-250 and how it's a great varmint cartridge, but it was never really meant to shoot heavy bullets. A very short neck, very sharp taper for feeding and functioning. It stretches easy. But for what it was designed to do back when it was designed, it was perfect. 22 Creed, a little bit longer neck, better angle on the shoulder, doesn't stretch the case as much. Designed to shoot the heavier bullets. Yes, a modern design 22-250. But that said, what you have to be careful of is that every year, I always look at it this way. The case cartridge or the head stamp that's on it, that's a coffee cup, right? And I said it in the last podcast. Does the design of the cup, the bend of the lip as the curve, the hourglass shape that they give it to make it look a little fancier, the colors and the ceramic coatings that they use, when that coffee pours over the rim of that cup onto your lips, does it make it taste any different? And case cartridges, although there are some technical advantages to them, of course, you don't want a coffee cup that's 1 inch round and 4 feet tall. You're not going to be able to drink from it, right? But at the same time, it's the vessel that serves the drink, right? It's the case is nothing more but than the propellant carrier that launches the bullet. That's all it is. Actually, as soon as the gun's fired, it lets go. It has nothing else to do other than just hold pressure, right? And so when I look at new cartridges, I try to say, okay, from perspective of a shooter, are there tactical advantages as far as the case design being a little bit more modern? And in most cases, there are. They're making the case a little bit wider. They're giving them a little bit more room for components, which allows for more speed. They're shallowing up the shoulders so they don't stretch as easy. They're giving them longer necks to support the bullets a little bit better. But go back to the 300 Win Mag and its poor little short neck. It set more world records in bench rest shooting than almost any other caliber at 1,000-yard bench rest, heavy gun, right? So you can't downplay that the old cartridges weren't extremely accurate, and if any case, still own all the world records, at least a majority of them. And so they haven't proven themselves as far as being the ultimate world record challenge. Yes, somebody goes out and wins, King of 2 Mile with it, and it becomes like a media feeding frenzy with that information. But they haven't won thousands of bench rest matches with it, right? So there's some truth to a lot of the cartridges when they come out that they're a little bit better designed, just like the little bit better designed carts. What keeps you buying a new car every couple of years? There's some improvements in some way, better gas mileage, more efficient engine, rides better, it's quieter, safer, more electronics so it's we probably wouldn't upgrade our cars if we didn't think there was a value to it. But the same thing goes with the cartridges, and that's really the gig, right? It's the game. So they come up with a way to tweak on paper something to make it a little bit better, and then they get the writers to go out and beat all the drums everywhere they can on every magazine, every article, every influencer across the country. And if you could picture like all these people beating the drums all at the same time, the entire country would be thumping, right? Everybody just banging on these drums, trying to get you to look in their direction so they can show you, why this is so awesome. And then it gets your attention. You read it. It makes sense. You go out and make a purchase. And then you pay twice as much for the ammo, and then you have to buy a new scope and rings. It's not bad for business, right? We're building 7 PRCs today, so we're really excited. We've got a couple that we're actually assembling. But that said, though, when we were talking with the customer yesterday, and he was saying, like, he didn't argue with me, but you could hear that he was poised, waiting for that opportunity to insert why the 7 mag is still king, right? So what I did is I explained to him that we have a couple parameters that we put into play here when we develop a new ACE system, and we have a set of rules, I do, as to which will make the cut and which won't. And there's reasons, so it's got to pass muster in a couple different stages, and it's got to answer yes to more questions than not. And so we have its first stage it has to get through, and it has to answer 4 out of the 5 as a yes, and it gets to the second stage and it has to answer 4 out of the 5, it's a yes. And then a third stage is the final straw in which we say, okay, there's 3 more parameters it's got to meet. And if it meets all of those, then we'll say, okay, that's worthwhile taking a look and making an ace for. And the 7 PRC made all of those cuts. But the 7 mag didn't. We don't offer the 7 mag. We offer the 300 Win Mag. And we don't offer the 264 Win Mag, which is one of my favorite belted Magnum cartridges. Because as much as I love the cartridge, it doesn't meet the parameters for us to bring it in and put it into manufacturing. Neither did the 7 mag, in my honest opinion. And so we talked about the differences of why we didn't offer the 7 mag, but then also why we offered the 300 Win Mag. A little bit easier for shooters to shoot, and more of a push than a slap on recoil. Ammunition's everywhere. Everybody in the world makes 300 Win Mag ammo, and it's inexpensive, and it's still capable of killing anything up to and including dangerous game. So it's a great universal cartridge, sort of like the big brother to the 308. But the 7 PRC and 300 PRC, I think Hornady spent a lot of time, and I'm not beating the drum here. I think Hornady spent a lot of time thinking about, because most of those guys over there are shooters, about, okay, so we've got the PRC brand and the 6.5. What about the 7s and 3s? What can we do in there? Because they really didn't have anybody in that game. They got the 6.5 Creed, right? But they don't have anybody in the 7 and the 30 cal arena. And so they spent the time to try to go over ballistically making and designing what they think is the perfect cartridge for both of those bullets, and probably more opt towards heavy bullets, which is what we shoot. So at distance, we need to shoot heavies. And so I thought they did a great design on it. And the fact that they are pushing this so hard, and the fact that there's going to be commercially available ammunition, and because they are a bigger corporation, it's going to become a mainstream caliber, and I think both are better options. than the 7 mag. And that's just, I have nothing against the 7mm mag. It is a great round. But I think for some shooters, it's a little bit too fast of a recoil. And a light hunting rifle, it slaps you. It's a hard hitting rifle. And then the availability of components, with the 7s, it's not quite supported like the 300 Win Mag. And I don't think it's going to be quite supported as much as the 7 PRC and the 300 PRC. I think those are going to be heavily supported with ammunition everywhere. Everybody's going to make it. Hornady's on board. People are going to chamber it. It's going to become potentially a rival for the 300 Win Mag as far as its level of popularity and its availability for good quality components. That's where it's going, and that's why it's sort of made the cut. So we're excited. And I also said in the conversation we had yesterday is that this will always play itself out in the wash, but it's a long game. It won't be but 10 years from now until the stickiness or the staying power of these cartridges actually is known. And that has happened a lot in the past. So, for example, like the 7 short action Ultra Mag, the 7 SOM, I thought that was the better case design over the 7 WSM, Winchester Short Mag. It, in my mind, was the perfect 7mm cartridge for most shooters. It lost the battle, the war with the 7 WSM, not because it wasn't a better design, not because it wasn't more efficient cartridge, but simply because the Winchester Short Mag was faster. There were a lot of downsides to the WSM. It didn't feed and function well at all. It struggled in those areas. It was really maxing out the short action cartridges. There were some drawbacks to the cartridge, which led me to say that I really thought the 7 SOM was the better cartridge, but it's gone. I mean, you might be able to find some special runs of brass. I don't think you're going to go to Walmart and find any ammo for it, but at the time, it was a sweetheart cartridge, and everybody was buying those 2 calibers like crazy, right? And then here we are 10 years from now. 300 WSM, is it still available? I think there are people that still make ammo for it, but it's not everywhere. The 7 Winchester Short Mag, I don't know. The 22, I think they had a 22 WSM or Winchester Super Short Mag, WSSM. Do you remember those? I don't know where they're at. I haven't seen any of that ammo for sale for a while. And so I always say that we look at new cartridges coming out and we try to get a big picture of whether or not this thing can stick around for 10 years. And I do think the PRCs are going to be here for a long time to come. I really do. I think they're going to have that staying power. But I also thought the 7 Short Action Ultra Mag was a fantastic cartridge, and I thought that was the better case design, but it lost a public war simply for feet per second, which to me shocked me. It doesn't shock me, but it shocked me, right? So when you're going out and you're selecting calibers and cartridges, there's nothing wrong with the old school. I still love the 300 Win Mag. We build them all the time. They're super easy to shoot. As far as the Magnum goes, they are certainly capable. They're extremely accurate and ammo everywhere. And I would recommend it to 1 million people. And the 7s and the 300, they're going to play themselves out over the next 2 years. And really, I might be coming here saying it really is. It's that accurate. It's that good. They've done such a good job with the slower burning powders. It's not hard hitting. There's all these things that we could talk about, but that has to be seen in the future. So just be careful. I always look at new cartridges when you start reading all the magazines and all the articles online and top 10 this and top 10 that. These guys are drum beaters. They're needed in our industry because they keep the cash flowing to the industries that need to stay in business. That's not a bad thing, right? But they really are banging on that drum to get you to look so they can show you something in the hopes that they'll get your attention long enough that you'll stay behind and read the magazine or article, in hopes that after you're done reading the article, you'll go and read another article, in hopes that a month from now, you're going to convince yourself that that's the cartridge you have to have because it's the best cartridge ever made, right? So just food for thought with that, right? But for the record, we are offering the 7 PRC. We are making them now. We're actually making a couple today. And the 300 PRC is in process. We should actually have those aces in hand within a week or two. And we should be ready to start assembling some rifles. We've been waiting quite a while for those. So we're excited to get those in our hands as well. And then the testing, we'll know 10 years from now whether or not the cartridge panned out. All right, before we finish the podcast up, I do want to say a quick thank you to MDT. MDT is a proud sponsor of the show. We really appreciate their support. They make lots of great chassis, from the Oryx chassis, which we think is one of the best unsung heroes for both introductory shooters or starter rifle, fully adjustable, to the ACC Elite, which we think is the top of the line chassis right now. I mean, they're just great chassis. So one of the upgrades you can do for your rifle, factory or custom, is to get a stock that fits you and fits you well. And if you want to look at all the great options they have for all the different makes and models, you can stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com. So we're really looking forward to lots of the great subjects we're going to be covering in the next several episodes of the podcast. I do want to say thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen. If you enjoy the podcast and like to support the show, you can stop over to Patreon, look for Wolf Precision, and you can sign up for our Wolf Pack. It's $3 a month. Also, we have our online long-range shooting school running full speed. So that is up and running, and we really appreciate all the support and all the people attending the class. We are putting up new instructional videos every 1 to 2 weeks, and we should have the entire school online with probably over 20-some hours of content by the end of the year. So you can chime in any of the highlighted subjects on our online long-range shooting school page at Wolf Precision. It means it's active, and you can click, support, subscribe, and enjoy the content. We really appreciate it. We'd also like to say a quick shout out to all the great people at Akuma and Morris Great Lakes who have been working diligently on the LB3000 and Akuma 560V, which is being set up. We were installing tooling yesterday, which is really exciting. We're really getting close to actually starting turning parts here at the new facility. So getting closer, we'll try to do some video updates on that as well. And then we're also going to offer our tip of the week. So if you log on to our YouTube page and you like to watch some of the content we're going to be putting out, from the aspects of new shooters, we're going to start putting out lots of little content on all of the little things that new shooters would be asking questions on or just simply not know how to do. And we're going to put up a new video every week on our YouTube channel called Tip of the Week, and you can log on and enjoy any of that. So if you'd like to sign up for that, you can stop over to our YouTube channel. It's Wolf Precision. You can register, you can subscribe, you can hit the notification bell. Those videos will start coming out next week. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us here at the show. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you're listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.